What's the time, Mr. Toto, the boy who cried wolf? For it's been 570 days now between today and the last time when Mercedes held atop some silverware. That's not good enough, surely. You guys are going to tell me that I'm too harsh on Mercedes, that there have been various travails that they needed to overcome, tropiezos, stumbling blocks, et al. However, I think if we hold them to account, if we hold them as they are one of the greatest teams to ever assemble in F1 history, then once again, per Checo Perez before them, we'd be doing them a disservice not to hold them to account. Look, over the past few months, Mercedes have kept making mistakes. I read a brilliant article today on Autosport that talked fairly honestly about their hopes and what they need to do with a view to turn around this sinking ship. Each and every single time, the pros is supposed to outweigh the action. Toto, the bright boy who cried wolf, will always tell the world's press and media that they're doing the right things, that they are now travelling in the right direction. They have a North Star now as far as their design philosophy is concerned. Well, how's that been working out? I feel like it's been copy-paste as far as that soundbite for as near as makes no difference the past 24 months. So when I say very disparagingly, the boy who cried Toto Wolff, how are you to argue against that? How can you believe otherwise, that Toto Wolff is anything other than an unreliable narrator at this stage? And as a Mercedes come Lewis Hamilton fan, I want to believe that chap desperately. I really do. But each and every single time over the past 12 months, he said, now we're bringing upgrades. We are moving in the right direction. The bad days are now behind us. And then yet again, Lewis jumps in the car and experiences positivity. A quick car feeds back well during practice. And then all of a sudden, that pace is fugazi. It fades to black between practice and the paid sessions being qualifying and the race. I say that to say this: Canada represents something of an inflection point. The time for talking is done. That's yesteryear. Erstwhile we could talk. However, now is the time for action. Testament to that, of course, is one Christian Horner. I'll tangent to Christian and Red Bull because I think we need to hold them up as the bastion of what good F1 looks like as at June of 2024. Look at me crying, chat. This is how much it's affected me, impacted me. Pathetic fallacy. Indeed, my mood has been detrimented. But if we pay some homage to Red Bull and how they managed to get it done, there's a brilliant article that I will link in the chat on motorsport.com, and it speaks to head of race strategy, one Will Courtenay. What is it that Red Bull do so brilliantly to get the best out of Messrs Maximilian Verstappen and Checo Perez? How do they do it? He speaks to everything, very succinctly by the way, but he speaks to everything that Red Bull are doing that Mercedes are not. Continuous improvement is your first port of call. None of this random walk iteration as far as their design philosophy. Red Bull will not throw the dartboard at the darts. This is what has characterised Mercedes' mistakes so eloquently over the past 24 months. What are we doing? Rigid processes in place as far as their decision making. Well, if Mercedes had these, then surely they would have known better than to roll forth a failed zero-pod concept between 2022 and 2023. Surely, action pros, we're already talking about. Christian Horner. Nothing sticks on the dude because he's a racing mind and he takes action more than he talks. Toto Wolff is the antithesis to this. Good fortune. Yeah, he's had some of that. Christian Horner was going to get sacked in 2021, but for a Nicholas Latifi cheeky oversteer moment. Toto potentially can cry foul of the racing gods. Preparation. Let's talk about this very quickly. Steve, what's going on, sir? I hope you're good, mate. Leroy, Merck have lost so many people. Yeah, no, the human resource is absolutely part of this story that we need to talk to. You need to keep more this intellectual property heads. You need to have more coming in the door, good heads, than you do leaving. We're going to go through the names. Blondin, Costa. They've lost a gazillion. Resta. Where are the new heads coming in? But I digress. Look, let's talk about preparation. I'll never forget at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Each and every single time that we've had a Saudi Arabian Grand Prix over the past 3-4 years-ish, there's been a safety car within the first 25 laps. Yet and still, Mercedes prepare their strategy as if they have no knowledge of this. What are we doing? Red Bull, in stark contrast, institute the Monte Carlo methodology. They are simulating for all of these circumstances, looking at the most recent history of these races and formulating their strategy with this front and center of the mind. What are we doing here? This isn't complicated. These things are not rocket science. So why can't Mercedes nail this? I just don't know. Beggars belief. Clear and concise communication. Again, courtesy of Will Cotenay, head of race strategy at Red Bull. When was the last time you heard anything clear and concise come out from Mercedes? I cannot remember. Will Cotenay also talks about bandwidth. Well, the drivers at Mercedes don't have any bandwidth because they're driving around an absolute SH1T box of a car and have been for the past 36 months. What are we doing, Mercedes? Cut me a break, mate. Like, my emotional bandwidth cannot stand this any longer. Surely at the Canadian Grand Prix, we need to see some improvements. Iterate positively. Random walk iteration is a thing of the past, surely dead. You can't bring one upgrade to a Grand Prix and then go in a completely new design philosophy direction for the next Grand Prix. These upgrades, have a plan. Toto, this is what you keep telling us that you have in place. Have a plan and iterate for it in one direction, surely. They can't do it. They haven't been doing it. What's going on? Oh, Steve, it's chaotic out here. I don't want a diatribe for Mercedes yet and get, Cameron is so boring. All you talk about is negativity around Checo and Mercedes. I don't want to, but this is the truth. I will say again, for the avoidance of doubt, never ever will I on this channel sacrifice the objective truth at the altar of any partisanship. Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton, or otherwise. I cannot. And these guys are worthy of criticism. Said at the outset, what time is it, Mr. Wolff? Well, let me answer my own question. The time for Toto and Mercedes is to show and prove. I don't want to hear any more chat. I don't want misdirection around acrimony between the driver pairing. I don't care for what's happened and the zero pod philosophy. All the failings of Christmas past fade to black. It's all about the here and now and what we're going to do going forward as Mercedes and F1 team, the boys and girls at Brackley and Brixworth, and Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes fans around the world. That's what I care about now. Good processes, sound decision making, robust controls in place. That ultimately, this is F1 and it's a complicated Rubik's Cube to solve for, is it not? I get that. Even if you do all the right things, sometimes the outcomes by virtue of the racing gods are not favourable. I get that. But I want to see the good processes. These guys are still putting the cart before the horse, throwing the dartboard at the darts. It's tiring. I am tired of it as a Mercedes fan. There is news, other news, big news. 2026 rules and regs as far as the tech specs of the car. 2:30 British Standard Time today. Those are due to come out. The rumour is that there's going to be serious amendments made to the car as far as the wing beam, the rear wing. But most importantly of all, are we going to see a change to ground effect? Is it going to be the flat underbelly of a car that they'll be rolling forward in 2026? If the rumour mill is to be believed and word on the curb, the F1 curb is anything, then that's potentially what we might see. The timing of the announcement is curious. I'd be keen to get your thoughts on why they're coming out with this now, all of a sudden. But stay tuned. 2:30. I would break that news, but unfortunately, I've got beans to count. What's Leroy saying? Merc are just waiting for 2026 now. No ground effect, so they're all put their cards at that. Leroy, but the joke is, you hit on a good point in closing. Look, if Mercedes don't nail this, and this is per the Autosport article, brilliant article that I link, they keep zigging when they should have zagged as a Formula One team. And this is courtesy of the lack of human resource, the lack of intellectual property, more churn, all of the aforementioned. They need to start making sound decisions. And here's the clincher and the deal breaker potentially, if we don't see progress this weekend at the Canadian Grand Prix, meaningful continuous improvement as far as that W15 car, then the sound decision makes itself. No longer can these guys do the random walk iterative processes as far as 2024, 2025 are concerned. For once, they would be right to divest out of the here and now and focus on the new rule and reg set in 2026. That's the sound decision that they need to make. And again, this is why I say the Canadian Grand Prix will be absolutely a tipping point visual for Mercedes, for Toto, the boy who cried wolf, Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton, and George Russell of Kings Lynn Norfolk. It will get techie. We'll be here to digest it together. Stay tuned, 2:30. Let's see what the FIA come out with. But between now and then, no further questions, Your Honour. But I digress.